Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. Because today we have the one, the only Mr. Nathan Evans. He is the managing editor of Popzara.com. If you haven't heard about them, then, well, you're in for a treat because it's a wonderful, beautiful blend of pop culture and it's a bizarre of mixture of things. It's really just a one-stop shop for everything from video games, tech reviews, movie reviews, book reviews. There's everything streaming, everything, just really just so much. And of course, video games as well, my favorite. So everyone, we'll be talking to Nathan Evans here in just a moment. But before we get to that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, reviews, topics, really anything that we do here on the program. One place to go, computeramerica.com, and you will find everything, including a link to our guest website if you don't want to just go to popzara.com, so you can check that out as well. So the show notes are going to be super important. If we talk about anything and you're like, I want to know more about that, they were completely off base, they were wrong, don't worry, we'll include it in the show notes over at our site and you can poke through and find it there, so that if you're busy or if your hands are tied, don't worry, we got you covered. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and just bring Nathan on and have a wonderful, sprawling conversation about today's headlines and, just some of the stuff that him and his team of writers has been doing over there at Popzara. So Nathan, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
You say the one and only like it's a containment issue.
Well,
we got it down.
You don't
want to
know what happened to the two and many. They are nowhere to be found.
I'll just say, I'll do an obscure reference here. Mickey 17. That's all I have to say.
Is that really obscure? From what I heard, that was making all the headlines in like the award show, like the award tents, and then it came out, and everyone's like, it's not that good. It's not that good.
I haven't seen it yet, but it might be one of those things where it's a genre pick, and when it comes to genre films, you might hear, oh, this gets a bad review. And for anybody who doesn't know, Mickey 17 is the new movie from what's his name, Bong Joon-ho, I think, the director of Parasite, and a lot of other really really cool movies. But like you might hear, oh, this movie is a sci-fi epic about death and destruction, and that might sound depressing to you. But I might hear, oh, this movie's about sci-fi epic about death and depression. Oh, that sounds great. So it's like genre films are subjective. So you have to take it as it is.
They are. So, but hey, we're not here to talk about movies. We're here to talk about your site that talks about movies and video games and other stuff. For anyone out there who may be tuning in and being like, what's a Popzara? Why don't you real quick just go over what it is that you and your writers do over at popzara.com.
What do writers do? Well, this might come as a shock to you, but they write. No, I'm just kidding. They actually do write. No, it's like always, it's Popzara of pop culture. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's a little bit about movies, gaming, tech, books, and not the newest, not the biggest, but pretty good. And I think the writers do a pretty good job. And we were talking about movies, for example, and as you were saying that, there was lots of pictures of Minecraft on the site. Like you might have heard of this thing. It's called the Minecraft movie. It's not the game, it's the movie. And Chicken Jockey. That's all I got to say.
Yes, that's the only thing I've heard about it, is that it's causing an uproar and popcorn to fly whenever that particular scene. Speaking of a movie that did not get good reviews, but has turned into its own little cultural touchstone, is definitely the Minecraft movie. So
reviews only help a film if it's very obscure, no one's ever heard of it, and you're just giving life to it. But when a movie's like Minecraft, the reviews are not only unimportant, they have a net positive, where a negative review only feeds into it. Like if you like for example, we talked about this last time when the Super Mario Brothers movie was out, how the movie was getting mediocre reviews, but the
Yeah.
film was making bank. There are some things where reviewers are wrong. Like I honestly don't know if you're like a 60-year-old like crusty white guy and you're reviewing Minecraft. I really don't know if that material is going to make a damn bit of sense to you. And you say to yourself, well, that's not fair. Well, that same reviewer is going to review like a Ingmar Bergman film from 1956 or whatever, and he's going to say it's a masterpiece because it means something to him. Like at some point, you need to understand, like everybody needs to understand, like the audience needs to be represented. And this movie might be crap. Minecraft might be garbage, and it probably is, but the kids really like it. So it does speak to them, like it's for them, So I don't know. Maybe they should get 10-year-olds to review films.
Yeah, that would actually be more representative of the people going to go see that. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone can look back in their past and think, what movie did I really like when I was 10 or 12 or 14? Like, for me, it's like Rocket Man, which, was a very mediocre 90s comedy. But hey, I liked it a lot because I was a kid and I like stupid things. Stuff like that. And
Yeah, exactly.
I think, what was that?
Oh, I was going to say exactly. Like it's they, you are what your experiences are, and the stuff that you like is what you like. I mean, it doesn't have to be good for you to like it. In fact, it could be
Right.
garbage, and you could like it more.
And
So,
and apparently all it took was Jack Black to play Jack Black in the movie, and hey, that worked out very well. Very tangential, and then I promise we'll get on to a topic. But just recently, I think this was like 1 or 2 days ago, the Oscars made it a rule that the people voting on films must actually watch the films that they are voting on. And
yeah.
I can't really think of a category that would affect more than, like, honestly, like animation. That is going
Um,
to affect the voting a lot.
it affects mostly like documentaries and foreign films. Like this has been like a widely known secret. And when I say widely known secret, we're talking like Legend of Zelda style, like it's a secret to everybody sort of thing, where it's people who vote on Oscars don't usually watch the movies. Every year, we always see this category called hidden Oscar voter, and someone will dish dirt on why they picked certain films. And you could look this up every year.
Hmm.
And what it is, like for people who don't know, Oscars are not based on merit, they're based on voting. It's political. They put out ballots. People don't watch half the movies. They vote for the film because their friend made it, or they like the actor, or they don't like the actor, so they're not going to vote it. That's literally how it works. They call it
Yeah.
split the voting, just like politics. And so people were getting upset because people were admitting they weren't watching the films. Like they just came out and said, I didn't watch it, but it looked cool. And so you documentaries specifically, like you've heard of, what screeners are, but
Hmm.
but the problem is that in the old days you had to go to a theater to watch a screener. No one has got time for that. So they started giving out VHS. People would bootleg them. People DVDs, they'd really bootleg them. Then they would do digital. People still bootleg them, and so people just didn't care anymore. And so I thought you were going to bring up the other Oscar news that came out yesterday about the AI,
Oh,
where
that they're going to allow AI footage or films to
yeah,
be to win awards, essentially. Which, there
yep,
was a huge strike about a year and a half, 2 years ago,
yeah, it was completely
over this
irrelevant.
exact issues. And you're right, yeah. Now what they just striked about all the protections against AI and preserving jobs and the way it would be used, and now they're like, well, I think it's definitely in reaction to one of the movies using AI to alter the voice of their speaker to sound more like a native speaker of of that country.
Um, there was a couple actually. There was a couple. There were two Best Picture nominees actually used AI to do that. It was The Brutalist,
Hmm.
when they were transferring. I think it was Czech or Polish or one of those Slavic languages. And the other one that was supposed to be, it was Amelia Perez, where they were singing the songs. And the problem is they couldn't get the singing right, they couldn't get the vocals right, so they used AI. And we saw this like a million times in between, like on trailers and opening cinemas, where especially Disney was the biggest offender. They were using AI content throughout their shows. So
Hmm.
yeah, the writer's strike was completely irrelevant up to because Hollywood, how do I say this, Ben? Hollywood looks at talent the same way Walmart looks at cashiers.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I can replace you with an automated machine. Like, that's what they look like. They're like, okay, we'll give you $15 an hour, we just won't hire you anymore. We will replace you with a machine. And that's why next time you go into McDonald's or any store, look at those tellers, the automatic tablet machines. They're replacing people because they're cheaper. That's just how it's going to be. Although I didn't send you the story. I didn't
Yeah.
send it to you, but because I didn't know if it was old or not. But tangent, right, a little tangent here. But apparently, Sam's Club is going to replace all their automated tellers with the AI scanners.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they've already started implementing it. Where do you go to Sam's Club or are you familiar with
Uh,
it?
Sam's Club, Costco, interchangeable. We're not sponsored by either, so we don't have to shout either one out. But no, I think you're talking about like the fast scan and stuff like that that they
The
do.
fast scan, yeah,
Yeah. Haven't really used it, but yeah, I saw that they were actually,
they were
they were
testing
actively
it.
pushing it, so and testing it. But
Yeah, it's basically like it's like an amalgamation of the fast scan plus whatever RFID scanning that Amazon was doing with their tellerless stores a while ago.
mm-hmm.
And so they're going to use AI to watch your movements, to predict this, predict that. They got the big Halo scanner over there that's going to scan you again. And again, this is just the way things are going, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
If you so that's it.
You can fight the beast. So, but hey, AI is allowed in the Oscars. Will that actually make a difference? Probably not. Like, if you're still a crappy movie maker, I doubt we're going to see, what is the term they use nowadays? AI slop. We're not going to see a lot of
Plop.
AI slop there, but you're going to see touches of it at first. And then, of course, eventually it will be more and more predominantly featured. So we'll see how that goes. But hey, wow, what a tangent. So of course, Popzara, that's what we were talking about. You can see all the reviews, and we'll talk about your most recent podcast and other things that you have going on the site a little bit later. But you also sent over a number of stories, and we're just going to go through some headlines, today's offerings, and just have fun with it. So I think that our first story that we're going to talk about is Perplexity is building a
Yay.
browser in part to collect customer data for
I
targeted
love this.
ads.
I love this story. Like I thought this was the Onion when I saw this. Like the headline was so audacious. Like we're going to take your information and give you ads. Yeah. Like they're so honest about it.
Yeah, it's that, like, I think the gut reaction to a lot of people is like, do you want to see ads? And they're like, no. But then you take away that choice because let's face it, how do you get away from ads nowadays? And you're like, okay, do you want to see ads that are irrelevant to you or relevant to you? And I think most people would say, well, ideally no ads, but if I have to see ads, I'd rather see, not about another drug that I'm not going to take because I don't have, Parkinson's. I'd rather see relevant ads. And
Hmm.
that's where we are. So you're going to get ads and they're going to be relevant. And I'm guessing Perplexity, which I'm actually not on the pulse of. I'm guessing they're building a browser that's supposed to be like more anonymous and
Well,
more protection focused.
oh, not anonymous at all. Like in fact, quite the opposite. Like they literally are bragging about sucking every piece of data, every click you do, everything. Like they are vampiric. And but their idea is they're going to create like a model based on you, which is interesting because I just sent you another story a few minutes ago. I don't know if you want to add to it, but Microsoft, I'll get it real quick. Microsoft is finally rolling out their rollback thing. And we've talked
Windows Recall, yeah,
recall, sorry, rollback.
which
Oh,
is a
Jesus.
horrible name, by the way, because recall
Yes,
means
exactly.
something.
When I think of recall, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I think of him like, yeah, and like putting the spike through the guy's throat because
Yeah.
because he's going to recall. Remember in the movie? But anyway, but that idea was very similar to what Perplexity is offering. Perplexity is basically what they're suggesting is a browser that's sort of like an amalgamation of Google Chrome, which is, let's be honest, data sucker.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea they're going to serve up ads because that's what Chrome is. Chrome is a self-contained advertising module. Looks like a browser. And of course, Windows Recall is on your operating system at large, and it snapshots everything you do to create an AI model of you. And what Perplexity is offering, and by the way, if you don't know, Perplexity is an AI search engine. And they're going to come up again in another story today, which is kind of funny that I brought it up. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, what they're suggesting is let's just be open and transparent about it. Like you use our browser, you have no privacy except for yourself. Like we will see everything you do in exchange for everything you do, but we're going to serve up a better experience. That's what they're saying. That's what they're offering. But I've never seen a company just be so transparent about it. Like just say exactly what they're doing. Like,
I
no privacy, just data,
I
all your
mean,
data.
that would honestly, if these companies were more honest about how much data, what they do, and some of the practices that they do, you wouldn't have the EU,
Hmm.
constantly taking them to court and being like, "Hey, you're pretty anti-consumer, you're anti-competition, you're anti-privacy, you're anti-this, anti-that." I think they do need to be more honest, and if they were, then Perplexity statements wouldn't sound so strange and
Dominance.
outlandish because it's probably what they're all doing.
Well, can I give you an analogy?
Sure.
So I always tell people when they read about tech people, they have to understand they're reading PR blitz and slop.
Hmm.
We could use the word slop for everything. But for example, like I went to the doctors a couple weeks ago to get a procedure done on my neck. I had to get
Hmm.
an injection. And when you go to the doctor, you have to translate what the doctor says. If the doctor says you're going to feel a little pinch, you're going to feel a bad poke. If the doctor says you're going to feel some pressure, you're going to feel a lot of pain because you have to translate it. But you accept it. You know he's lying to you. You know he's lying, but you don't want the doctor to say you're going to feel a lot of pain and it's going to hurt like a beep.
Hmm.
You just want him to say you're going to feel some pressure. And by the time you feel the quote unquote pressure, you can't move. You're like, okay, well, I've accepted the lie because I want to get through this. So when you hear tech companies use words like "we value your privacy," they don't. When you hear them say, "Oh, we're like this," like in the example of Microsoft Recall, "Oh, it's perfectly safe." No, it's not. Like your Windows, you are unsafe. You are famously unsafe.
Yeah.
People have third-party software to fix how unsafe you are. You know, and so
That was
and
only a
that's why
multi-billion-dollar industry, so
I was so happy that other people complained about recall, that it actually became a thing. I thought people were just going to be passive, right?
Hmm.
But no, they stood up and said, "No, we don't want this junk on our machine." And Microsoft delayed it, but they're still going to bring it out.
They're still going to bring it out, but if I was reading the article right, they said testing of the new version of Recall. This was on Ars Technica. They're saying that both Ars and other security researchers, not me, found that the company had addressed many of the complaints that the security about the security and added better automated content filtering to help keep the feature from storing some personal information. So
yeah.
I'm sure it's not like perfect. It's still going to capture some stuff that you don't want, but it's seems like they have made measurable progress in making it less, kind of capturing every little thing. So
It to me, it's sort of like the frequency that you get with Microsoft updates. It used to be once a year, then twice a year, and now they're like every other day. And
yeah.
every day you hear a story about, oh, this computer forced an update. Oh, we have to roll back the update because this messed up this. It's not necessarily the program. It's the fact that every single company and your grandmother is rushing to do an AI model, an AI browser, an AI this, an AI that, AAI, and it's clearly not ready for that. It's more like a sideshow.
Yeah.
It is not ready to drive the car yet. It's not ready, but they all wanted to drive the car.
So, like,
And
one feature that was ready for prime time was Microsoft, the search function, where it would search your computer and look through all your files and pop up the relevant file name or folder name that you were looking for.
mhm,
At some point, I think it was like Windows 8, 8.1. They started to include like web, based searches and stuff like that. When you search in your taskbar, it would pop up results from the web and whatnot. And I'm like,
yeah.
to me, that's kind of been broken for almost 10 years now. And if
Well, that's
AI
the
can
thing.
fix that, then great.
Well, that's the thing. That You're exactly right. They took the insularity that you could search your computer from Windows Start, which should be for your computer, and they basically opened that up to web searches. And then what they did,
Hmm.
they didn't open up just to web searches. They opened it up to only their web browser. I want to be clear about this. This was a big
Yeah.
deal. This was a company that got sued by the government because of this 20, 30 years ago, and they were found guilty, and they had to like break everything up, right? They almost had to break the company up, but they said, okay, we'll divest Internet Explorer from Windows, right? But then
Hmm.
they went and put it back in. They just called it Edge and they put it back in. And to this day, if you open up links in any Microsoft program, it will bypass whatever your default is,
Default.
and
Yeah.
it will open up Edge browser against your wishes. So they learn nothing. They get away with it. They get away with it at all. The only thing I can say, and this
Hmm.
is, this is not a discussion. This is not an open invitation because you and I will stay 10 hours on this, is that I think very possibly, and I'm not saying it's true, but this particular administration seems to be a little more sue happy, should I say, destructive in a way
Hmm.
that maybe they won't get away with it this time. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not saying I wish for that to happen or not, but I do sense a change in the air when it comes to how like these companies are treated. In fact, the other story that we're going to talk about, I don't know if when you want to segue to it, is about this, about Google
Yeah.
Chrome being
Yeah.
possibly sold off.
We're gonna switch over to OpenAI and the
Yeah.
talks of where Chrome might go after this. I do want to say that obviously Computer America's opinions are really at this point only my own. I have finally Highlandered Craig's opinions out of here, so
There can
yeah.
be only one.
Yeah, exactly. So they're only my opinions, and I have said for many years, and honestly, nothing has done to assuage my opinion that Nathan, I think tech companies are too big. They are massive.
Of course they
are
are.
sprawling. They are tentacle-like, and
Wait. Hold on a second. Craig didn't believe they were too big?
Craig never really said that tech companies should be broken up. He never said that. But
I don't necessarily agree that they should be broken up, but I think if you have companies that are being egregious, that purposely violate and flaunt the rules again and again and again, for example, then this is, you heard of tort reform, right?
tort,
Where
yes, yes.
yeah, so basically the idea is that you fine a company or you enact like civil penalties against a company that violates certain rules. In the United States, we have antitrust laws, of course. That goes back to Rockefellers. That goes back to the oil barons and all this stuff, right? Because
Ones that would blush if you told them what our current tech executives
exactly,
are worth. Yes.
yeah, the tech companies though, and let's just get into it, okay? One of the reasons the tech companies have gotten away with so many shenanigans is because they basically control the government. Let's be honest here. It's not a conspiracy theory. Like every single one. Like I remember, do you remember when Trump was president the first time? And he said, "Let's ban TikTok." And everyone's like, "No." And then Biden becomes president and Biden's like, "Let's ban TikTok." And then like a week later he joined TikTok. And then Trump becomes president again. Hey, okay, you know what? TikTok's not so bad. It's like you're getting like every day it's a different opinion. It doesn't matter what party's in there. They've all been beholden to these tech companies because they know the tech companies control the information flow. You know this. It's
It
crazy.
wasn't a good look that at Trump's inauguration you had pretty much every tech billionaire standing right there front row. It led to some photos that were very
And by the way,
yeah.
let's go back 4 years. When Trump was president, every one of those companies banned him. Like it's like what happened? Like you see what I'm saying? Like politics and tech are incestuous. They're bad bedfellows. And when it comes to, I don't know if you want to go right into the Google thing yet or not, but I agree with you. I think the tech companies have become too big, but I'm not sure the government, and certainly not the EU or anybody, knows how to regulate them in any meaningful way because there's no one else that can do what they do to a point.
I
They're not
just
like
think it would be easier to regulate 20 rhesus monkeys than it would be to regulate a 900-pound gorilla. That's how I'm feeling. But
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing, though. Well, I'll just say this: do you remember? Well, you don't remember; you weren't born yet. Neither was I. But when the last time the government actually separated was AT&T.
You're talking about Bell, right?
No, AT was AT&T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AT&T and Bell Labs and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you wanted a telephone back in the early 80s, you couldn't buy a telephone. You had to rent a telephone from AT&T. Everything was property of, it was kind of like how cable modems were for a while. You had to rent a cable modem. So the government says, nope, you're out, you're done, blow you up. So they separated, but AT&T survived as like the Terminator 1000, T1000, like a little droplet.
Yeah.
And all these little droplets split out. Oh, we're different. But over the last 20 years, they all smushed back together and became AT&T again.
Yeah.
Because it was absolutely worthless. But I will say this, and this is maybe a topic for another day. But at the same time, though, Ben, if you do study the history of innovation, if you do study the history of big companies, then you know as well as I do that monopolies aren't necessarily bad up to a point. Like the company that's very, very, very successful, the company that dominates everything, there are moments where they don't dominate because they're predatory. They dominate because they have a better product or they have a much better service. I'm thinking of FedEx, for example. FedEx was a dominant carrier because they had a much better model than USPS. They had a much better model than UPS of DHL. Like literally, the guy got laughed out of his master's class because his professor said your idea will never work. Became masterful. Apple for a very long time with the way they did streamlining like supply chain. Microsoft up to a certain point, up to all these companies and the U.S. government, for example, has monopolies. You know this.
Yeah.
The Postal Service is a monopoly. There's no way a third party company could ever compete with mail because it's forbidden by the federal government.
Yeah, but that's also a service, It's
well, that's what I'm saying. Like the internet, they tried to classify the internet as a utility with net neutrality, and you and I differed on that. And
I still believe the internet should be. I still believe the internet should be classified as utility. It is a crucial service that
I know you
all
say
Americans should have.
I know you say that, but I came at it from an innovation standpoint, not necessarily a malfeasance standpoint. And the reason I say that, and I'm not saying you're wrong, it is a utility, right? But the fact of the matter is that the opposition, the proponents of net neutrality at the time were putting together scenarios that just weren't factually true. And instead of saying all the things that they should have been saying, they were presenting doomsday scenarios like, they're going to limit, you're going to throttle your information if you don't pay them extra fees. None of that has ever happened. In fact, quite the opposite. Internet has gotten way faster. It's gotten way cheaper. It's gotten way more affordable. And we did it through regulation, but not necessarily categorization. So I think you can solve these problems, which I think they did. I think at this point, net neutrality is a past issue. I don't think it's going to come up again. I think it's been proven. Again, my argument, I think, came out that you can't lie about a utility. In the case of Google, for example, we talked about Perplexity, right? Mm-hmm. I've been preaching Firefox to you for years. Why I use Firefox as a researcher, because I can play with search engines, and I get people who are really into Chrome who say, "Oh, you could do that easy on Chrome." Well, how do you do it? Well, you got to go into the settings. You got to go down here. You got to do that's not
flags.
Easy.
Yeah.
But on Firefox, you just go click it right there. I can literally search 50 search engines on Firefox without doing anything. So much easier. Perplexity maintains that Google forbid them to be on their Chrome browser, which is anti-competitive, right? Yep. If I wanted to put Perplexity on Firefox, I just go to Perplexity, push a button, and it's on my Firefox. It's there. I don't have to worry about it. And I think that's the sort of thing that we're talking about when we're talking about antitrust, is that you have a browser that is very anti-competitive when it comes to opposition.
Right. Which leads us to this next article that, if you're watching the video portion, you can follow along there. But also, I believe it was this one, OpenAI, very famously put out a feeler that, because Chrome is being looked at and Google is being looked at for, being broken up, essentially. Although I will say that how these legal cases kind of get handled, we are still months, if not years, away from really understanding what all of this is going to look like in the end. But there's the possibility, at least the hints of a possibility, that Chrome could be sold off to one of its competitors.
I find it hilarious. I find it hilarious, actually, that they're contemplating this. Did you see one of the bidders that is interested in buying Chrome? I didn't send it to you, but I laughed when I saw it. Yahoo.
Yahoo?
Yeah, right.
Do they have enough couches to search to look for change to buy that thing? I don't know.
If Yahoo bought Chrome, then Chrome would be off my computer in a minute. Like, I would not put anything like Yahoo on my machine at all.
My wife still uses Yahoo Mail, and I've been telling her to get off of it, and her account gets compromised. Like, many accounts can get compromised, multiple times a year. And I'm like, I know why. And she's like, I don't want to hear it again. So, yeah.
What you need to do is go into her email and change the password. and don't give it back.
Yeah, and honestly, folks out there, as someone who has went from Apple to a Google phone, who has switched email providers to and from, who has switched password managers to and from, who has switched browsers to and from, I got to say, Nathan, that all these things, surprisingly, are easy to do. I know it seems like a huge monumental task to switch services. Hard. It's honestly not that bad. There are tools, there are buttons, you can download things and re-upload them.
Used to be
there's
hard.
Really not. There's actually pretty good continuity between these services. So, yeah.
Yeah, but let's just all agree that Yahoo, sorry, that's a drink. Yahoo is garbage. It is
Yes.
a bad search engine that uses Bing. It is a horrendous front page. It is a failed company that deserves to be in the dustbin of tech history. If for some ludicrous reason that they somehow bought Chrome browser, then Chrome would be off my system. But I will tell you this, though. The Chrome browser, though, here's the thing. Chrome isn't just a browser. It's an operating system. Google uses it as Chrome OS. You know? They use it as Chrome OS. They also fork it out with Chromium. So who knows? I mean, anything could happen. Like you could have all that sort of thing happen. And yeah, that's crazy. So anyway, welcome back to Talk Time. We are here talking about text. We are here talking about Google. We are here talking about all the things. No, I was making fun of you when you were gone.
No, you're absolutely good. But one thing that I think I wanted to focus on real quick, Nathan, was the fact that OpenAI might get this, and this idea of AI first. And we were talking about something earlier in the show, and you're like, AI is just not ready for that. I think
Google said the same thing, though. Google said the exact same thing. They're going to replace all their Google search with Gemini and all this. So, like, Google's not proposing anything different than OpenAI. You know, same thing.
Yeah, OpenAI, for anyone who doesn't know, at least I think it's still. They have not gone through with their plans of going public. They're still a nonprofit company. Of course, they have more capital than I think like 99% of other companies ever hope to accumulate.
Well,
so
there is one caveat, though. We need to be very clear. And this goes back to our favorite person on the planet, Elon Musk. So as you know, Musk sold Twitter, or X, to his own company. Mm-hmm. What was it? What's his company's name again? It's got AI.
Gronk, XAI or something like that. Yeah.
Something AI. Yeah. So he sold it to himself. So now he's out of debt. So go figure. But remember, OpenAI started as a seed program from Musk, and it was started as a nonprofit. And I don't know if this is actually going to go to courts or not, but there's threats of lawsuits that Musk is going to sue. Who's the guy who runs OpenAI?
Sam Altman.
Sam Altman. Yeah, like they don't like each other. They're very vocal that they don't like each other. And Musk is accusing OpenAI of reneging on, the original business model, that it would be literally open and it would be open sourced and all this. And they've since gone back and they've turned to be a for-profit company. Now, if you ask me, just on the basic facts, it's an open and shut case. But we don't live in an open check case world because, let's be honest, Musk has become an irritant to a lot of people. And so because of that, I don't know if he's going to get a fair shake in the courts, as you saw with his with the Tesla remuneration things with his things like that. So I don't know how this is going to play out, but I know that this could be one of those cases they call ask forgiveness, don't ask permission, where you have a company that will just plow ahead with something instead of trying to make it legal and then just pay the fines to smooth it over. Facebook, I don't know a lot of people know this, but Facebook started like that. They were found guilty for, violating the Winklevoss twins, like original IP. Oh, we'll just pay the fine. They got the company. Yeah. That could happen with OpenAI. I don't know.
I think when it comes to at least Chrome, and if they're forced to sell, and obviously OpenAI was one of the ones that threw it out there, and Perplexity, like you said, would potentially like it as well. Like, honestly, as far as this story goes, and Chrome having to sell it off, to whoever it may be, who knows? Maybe Musk, maybe he'll get Chrome somehow. But
that'd be weird.
I think any company would love to take over Chrome because it is such a integrated, successful part of the company. So
here's the thing, though: you can have Chrome today. You could make your own Chrome browser today with Chromium.
Yeah.
That's what Edge is. There's other versions, but they don't want Chrome for the browser. They want Chrome for the data. And the problem, though, is that I don't know if you can actually dissect, if you can remove Chrome from Alphabet or Google, because it is their operating system for Chrome OS. It's literally in the name, Chrome OS. It is an operating system that is so deeply entrenched. Do you use Google Apps at all? Do you use Docs or whatever?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the Gmail and then all the Google suite of products. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they work a million times better on Chrome than they do on any other browser. It's literally like that's another case where Google is throttling productivity on third-party browsers and making it much more available. Like literally things like copy and paste don't work well on third-party browser on Firefox.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can. Like I said, you could have Chromium. You can build your own Chromium build right now and get Chrome. All the extensions work. Everything Chrome works. But they don't want that. They want the data. They want the tentacles. And I don't know if you could do that.
So, but like we were saying, it's going to take months and years. Like even if they came down tomorrow and said, yep, you got to break up, it's going to take years of appeals before they actually, manage to do anything. And of course, a lot can change between then and now. And even I think kind of what you're hinting at, like even if Chrome saw the writing on the wall and they said, okay, or if Google said, okay, we have to divest completely from Chrome, I think that they would start making new products like almost immediately that would take over the functionality of that. So by the time that they had to get rid of Chrome, there would be replacements at Alphabet that would take over pretty much entirely for Chrome. So
and that's the last thing I have to say about this is that maybe the idea of a web browser, the way we think about it, is sort of outmoded as well. Like you switch to a Google phone, like basically Android is Google. Like for better or for worse, the operating system is Google. The same way like Windows is Microsoft. Like if I'm going on search, like I said, if I'm searching something in the search box, it's searching Bing. You know what I mean? I can't change that default. It's searching Bing. If I search something on iOS, it's searching through Safari or using app. I think Apple uses OpenAI, don't they? I think they use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Or they're supposed to. So whatever we think of a search browser, we're just we're haggling over the method, but we're not like maybe we don't fully understand the method. And I think you can get it's like the what is it in the Greek legend, the dog, the three-headed dog, is it Cerberus or whatever? Like you cut off one head, like 10 heads appear. Like that could be what it is. It's like
that's the Hydra, but yeah.
The Hydra, yeah. It's what was I in Cerberus? Sorry, I don't know my Greek legends.
Don't cut the dog's head
discount
off.
Everything I said. Yeah, discount everything I said.
No. Google is definitely the case. Which hey, let's face it, they cut their own heads off to make more heads. That's you could go to the Google graveyard and see all the different projects that they're willing to kill and replace with three of the same products. Museum. So.
Exactly. Like you and I were talking about Google Chat before, and you were telling me about Google Chat because we're open discussion. We're talking about replacing Skype because Skype is dying, and I asked you your opinion, and you said, "Oh, Google Chat." And my first thought was, which Google Chat? There's been like 50 of them.
Google Hangouts, of course. That's clearly the one that.
I think that's what I first when I first started going on Computer America. We use Hangouts. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. It was man.
It was okay. It was decent.
We went through a lot of different iterations of because like the ISDN line was the hard part. What to connect to other people with, that was the second hard part. So,
but do you remember what really did Google in at the time though? It was them trying to integrate too much into a service. They tried to turn Gmail. They tried to turn Gmail, into something that before that it was Google Buzz. You remember?
Yeah.
Google Talk. So it's just like you can't do that. Some people like the siloed services. They don't like everything being the thing. So
well, and it always comes back to Skype. So hey, who knows? Maybe Skype will get picked up again, just like Toys R Us did, and come back. So we'll see.
Speaking of that, hey, real quick, did you see that story about Toys R Us?
No. Well, what story?
I thought it was fake. They are making a live action Toys R Us movie.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Because we're onto that phase. Like we're gonna have. I'm joking, but like Toys R Us the movie's coming. Look it up, and maybe we'll have Walmart.
I mean, like there was the movie about Tetris. That was actually very good. Yeah.
Actually, you know what's funny? Hank Rogers.
Hmm.
The movie's about Hank Rogers. Of course, there's a little. Let's just say there's a lot of liberties taken with the story, but the
Yes.
movie's good. The movie's actually pretty fun, and mostly factual. Mostly, although at the end of the Tetris movie, spoilers, and I'm sure this didn't happen. There's a scene when the Nintendo executives and Alexei Pajitnov and Hank Rogers are going through a high-speed chase, outrunning Moscow agents in Moscow. That didn't happen, but it's
Probably
fun.
not. Probably not.
But no,
But
Hank Rogers has a new book out actually about Tetris. Came
there
out
you
this
go.
month. I need to read it. So, but yeah,
I need to read it. That's what he says about the Tetris book. Okay, no, but either way, no. I found an article here from Variety about Toys R Us. This project is an exciting opportunity to bring the magic of our brand to the big screen. It will be a journey as boundless as play itself, evoking the electric sense of wonder that is the essence of Toys R Us. The
see,
story will
that's
capture the imagination, adventure, and joy that made Toys R Us a destination for all kids of all ages. So
listen to
it's
that.
Yep, real quick. It's described as being in the vein of Night at the Museum, Back to the Future, or Big, plus another successful toy-inspired narrative like Jumanji or Barbie. So,
Yeah.
good luck, I guess.
You know what
I don't
that
know.
you know what that means? Kids get caught in Toys R Us, the toys come alive. It's going to be Sausage Party without the orgies.
There you go.
That's what it's going to be.
It's gonna be Five Nights at Freddy's, except it's not a
Yeah.
horror movie. So there you
But
go.
you know what though? I mean, it could work. I mean, it's a dead IP for the most part. So I mean, they're going to have Jeffrey in there. And I'll say this: as a kid of the '80s, I loved Toys R Us. I couldn't get enough of it. You know what the worst part of Toys R Us was? Was the commercials where they showed those damn kids with the shopping carts winning the Toys R Us the thing where you could
Spree?
run around the
Yeah.
spree, and they're just like, oh, it's like, oh, you could find it in the cereal. I was like, that's easy. I could do that. So I went and bought Rice Krispies. Didn't win. I'll try it again. You bought another box of Rice Krispies. Didn't win. When you're a kid, you don't realize it's a scam. But
Yeah.
they made it look
Yeah.
so easy to do the giveaway. So I never won. I never won.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Neither did I, but hey, we all won by having Toys R Us in our lives as long as we did. So, with that being said, speaking of dead technologies, real quick, let's touch, and I mean ever so lightly, and with a gloved hand, let's touch on 4chan. 4chan is for those who don't know, you are the lucky ones. It was a really well, let's face it, it was a message board. Except imagine a message board that would have, guidelines, rules, moderation, things that are pretty normal among internet communities, so that the worst of a community does not take over the whole thing. Instead, you had 4chan, which was a very simple, very simple message board. The technology behind it was not complex at all, but it was kind of like the Pirate Bay-esque, where no rules were really applied, and it was taken down multiple times. And yeah, it was essentially the worst of those communities. Were, instead of being punished or banned, they were given their own communities to just make worse and worse and worse. And 4chan got a very bad reputation of, deservedly so, of hosting very abhorrent content and very awful people, I guess. So Nathan, I say this, and as a little bit of a setup, obviously 4chan is a long fixture of the internet. It is one of the darker corners of the internet. It got wiped out recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I forget the hackers that did it. They got a funny name.
Soy
But I'll say
Jack, I
this.
believe.
I'll say this. I have
Well,
never
no,
in my life.
the rapper
I
form, but mhm.
Yeah, I have never in my life never spent more than 2 minutes on 4chan. Never. And the same reason I don't go to Tumblr, and to be honest with you, the same reason I don't go to Reddit for the most part, because a lot of these things have the same DNA. The idea is that you have some sort of an unauthorized, unbound, unregulated section of the internet in its purest form. Like basically all 4chan did was take what we used to call Usenets and took them off the clients and put them on a website.
Yeah.
And it was the Wild Wild West. And I'm actually going to surprise you. I'm actually going to defend 4chan a little bit, because if you're a free speech absolutist, then you have to at some level support what 4chan was at some level. That being said, for all the talk of 4chan being a cesspool of pornographers, of doxers, of extremists, all true, by the way, all true. There have been instances where 4chan people would help find kidnapped people. They would help locate suicide victims. Like there's a whole thing because that unregulated thing was a power that could be used for good or bad. Mostly bad, mostly
Mostly
bad,
bad. Mostly
mostly
bad.
bad, mostly bad. But the people that criticize it, what they need to do, they need to look at themselves in the mirror and they need to understand what the internet is. The internet does not make racist. It reflects racist. It reflects who the world really is. And I remember a couple of years ago, speaking of AI, Microsoft had that AI chatbot a couple of years back, and they set it free, and they had to shut it down in a couple of days because it ended up soaking up the internet, and it started spouting racist conspiracy theories and everything. Because what we've forgotten is that deep down, all of us have secrets, and maybe the secret is embarrassing, maybe it's not embarrassing. It could be maybe I have an STD because I did something bad. Maybe I cheated on my wife or husband. Maybe I have a secret fetish. A lot of people have this stuff. And collectively, we look at things like 4chan and say, oh, they're so disgusting. That's not me. But there's a lot of people out there that have different vices. And what 4chan did, it just collected all these perverts and miscreants in one place. And for the most part, you could monitor them. The website was not complicated. But then you start seeing the spawn of 4chan. You start seeing things like Tumblr, for example. Tumblr took the excesses of pornography and turned it into a giant thing. By the way, Yahoo bought it. Dumb. And then you have Reddit, which again, a lot of that vile vitriol went to Reddit before they finally started moderating them. Then you have Twitter, for example. Twitter became a big cesspool for it. You have underground sites for it. You have the pirate base. So 4chan may have spawned it, but it was more of a reflection of what we don't want to talk about, that is part of the internet, for better or for worse. Now you have the Onion, you have torrents, you have all these things. So maybe we focus so much on 4chan, which is a disgusting, horrible place. But yeah, I think we could have a larger conversation about what 4chan was in reflection. But at the end of the day, I didn't touch it because
I think that the article from TechSpot that you linked to and we'll include in the show notes puts it pretty good at the end, saying 4chan's influence on the 21st century culture is undeniable, but if it's really gone, many won't miss it. That's kind of where I'm at. Like you can definitely say that 4chan had, they had a lot of influence in certain circles. They did abhorrent, awful things. There were some communities that were just normal communities. They were a surprise to find on places like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think I'll miss it. And
no, I don't miss it. But at the end of the day, though, I'm glad it faded. I'm glad it sort of, and we talked about hacking, but like they say it's going to be back. But at the end of the day, if there's a market for something, it doesn't matter what it's called, they will find that market. And I'm not talking about something gross like child pornography, which should be eliminated from the internet. I'm talking about, today it could be like, oh, you can't look at hentai, Japanese pornography because it might offend someone in Minnesota. That's how it works. Like we laugh at this, but that's what happened to the pornography site Pornhub. They started closing down because certain states required age verifications. They said, "Screw it, we're not going to do it." It's another thing that you repress that. But what happens is if you want the content, and I'm saying this lightly, Ben, but if you want the content, you can find it if you look for it. What 4chan and Reddit and a lot of websites do is just make it a little bit easier to find that content. And I don't know, that's just how life is, isn't it? It's just like I don't walk down dirty alleys at 3 a.m. and I don't go to bathhouses for the same reason I don't go to 4chan. I am not interested. So
it's I just want to bring up really quickly because it was such a dark corner, but still influential. I don't think anyone can deny that there were definitely headlines being made around the world, especially with I believe Anonymous was really associated with 4chan and stuff like that, and that made plenty of headlines in the past before. So
I will bring up one more thing about just in general what 4chan begat. Just one quick thing. Back in the 2002, 2003, whatever, there was not a lot of instances where you and I, citizen journalists, could look at the mainstream media and sort of shout back. Like you had comment boards and everything. I'm reminded of, again, I always remind people that in 2004, during a presidential election, you had CBS, one of the major networks. was putting up fake documents to influence the presidential election. And it took people from 4chan, of all people, to look at the screenshot and say those are fake. And the scandal rocked, and CBS had to fire their anchor, Dan Rather. Like, it did represent a power inversion to some respect. And maybe, you say you have to take the good with the bad. And with 4chan, there was a lot of bad. But you see the point, though, is like it did give voice to some people. It just, I'm glad they were able to, I'm glad we have better channels now for that instead of 4chan. I'm just glad we've evolved past the slime.
Yeah.
So
the primordial ooze, and I couldn't think of anything more oozy than 4chan. So there you go.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Okay. So exactly. So with that being said, let's see. You have another story here that you linked about Threads. We can talk about that real quick, but then we're going to wrap up the show with Switch 2 and kind of final thoughts. So. But let's talk about Threads real quick. And Threads, because we're on the social media, not the 4chan social media, but more so of like, Chrome and Twitter and all that good stuff. Threads is moving to threads.com and adding a bunch of new web features, which, I think if anyone could mess up a new social media site, even though they were in the business of social media already, Facebook found a wonderful way of rolling out half a product, really, or a quarter of a product, and then they're still trying to figure out how to bring it to market, even though they essentially let off on the wrong foot for the last year. So, Nathan, what do you think of Threads?
I have Threads for Popzara. I'll say that. But I'll say this. Do you want my long answer or you want my very short, precise answer?
I like concise. Concise is good.
Okay, good. Threads is worthless. Threads was the first of the post-Musk acquisition Twitter hubs that was hobbled together quickly without any idea what it was. Like literally, they didn't own the domain for it, right? They didn't even own the domain for Threads. They just put it together because the word Threads was an SEO generated thing that a lot of websites have used to replace comment sections. Like there's a million websites that have threads on it. They just took the name and they said, hey, we're going to leverage it. You got to go through Instagram. We're going to everybody. This is what they assumed. Everybody hates Elon Musk. Everybody hates Twitter. So if we make this, everyone will move over there. What a good deal. And they celebrate. We had 100 million people do it. Again, lies. Like we had 100 million accounts because they just, it was just Instagram accounts being activated. And then it just disappeared. Like 100 million users just gone because nobody used it. Because again, the only people that migrated over to Threads were the people that didn't like Elon Musk and didn't like Twitter. The problem is that they expected to rebuild their user base. They expected to rebuild their social standing over at Threads. They couldn't do it. So they migrated back to X. And then you saw last year,
a lot of the tools weren't there from the get-go that, obviously Twitter had developed over 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, though, there seems like there was no ambition to do it.
Yeah, there's a real apathy as well. Obviously, if people don't have the tools that they need to rebuild what they had, they're also not going to wait around and, try the best that they can with what you give them. Like, they're just going to go back.
You see this all the time with companies that do a priority service. They try to have a secondary service. Like you saw it with Microsoft when they try to build a Zune. You saw it with I'm trying to think right now. You see it with companies like PlayStation trying to build a Move controller because Nintendo has one. Like the company that just copies a Vibe and they don't know why the Vibe is popular will not succeed in the Vibe because they didn't create it. They didn't generate it. You're seeing it right now with going back to the Switch with all these PC portables. Like, oh, let's just rush to make a clone of the Steam Deck or the Switch, but there's no real energy for it, and so they don't succeed. Blue Sky, which was started by Jack Dorsey, so to speak, that's the new Threads. Everyone's going to Blue Sky, but I will tell you right now, it's not true. Like they're all migrating back to X because they're not getting the engagement. You simply cannot take half the political spectrum, put them on a new thing, and expect them to have that type of conversation. They've grown addicted to the agitation of conversation. And X may not be a perfect platform for that, but like I'll give you a great example. Mark Hamill, the actor, Luke Skywalker, huge agitator on X, hates Donald Trump, has a huge following on X, huge following. Oh, this is toxic. forgetting that he's part of the toxicity. I'm going to go to Blue Sky. Follow me over to Blue Sky. He goes over there. Nobody gives a crap. So he has to go back to X. That's what happens. It's like you have these alternatives that are built in rebellion, but you cannot have a platform built on, like to quote Jerry Seinfeld, you cannot have a platform built on spite. You cannot do it. You have to have a reason, a raison d'être, they call it. You need to have a reason for living. And you can't say, well, I hate Elon Musk, I'm going to go over here. Great. Good luck talking with yourself, because you're going to bore yourself. You're going to go back to where the agitation is, because that's where the engagement is. And so if you're asking me about Threads, I forgot about Threads until I saw this story. Like Instagram, forget about Threads. It's just, I get it, but why would they build a competitor to their own social platform? Why would they do that? And they're not going to do that. So
yeah, I really feel like Threads is at the end of the day, Threads is just a way to harness what it feels like to me, just as like a conspiracy theorist, is it's a way for them to harness the anger at X and Twitter, and maybe spin some of the people that are angry at X and Twitter, which is a form of social media, get them to go to Threads, and then from Threads they'll go, okay, well, here's my Instagram account, and honestly, I have all my conversations, all my posts, all my pictures, everything I do is on my Instagram account, and then maybe turn Threads users into Instagram users. That's what it kind of feels like, because eventually I feel like Threads is, they're not doing away with it right now, but it feels like they're trying to use that as a channel to get people back to their primary service, like you were talking about.
Well, here's another thing. In order to compete and be a viable social media, you need an abundance of users. And if I was just going to have a Twitter following, or X following, sorry, and I was going to have 10,000 people, that'd be more than enough for me. But if I was going to be Beyonce, I couldn't survive with 10,000. It's all scalability. And so Facebook or Meta, they can't have 100 million users that are not active. Mm-hmm. You can have the user base, but if nobody's using your service in any meaningful way, and Threads is a dead platform. Like, nobody's using it. It's just there. And I wanted to give you a good example of these secondary services. Like, we talked about Facebook and Amazon. Do you remember when Facebook made a phone? Do you remember when Amazon made a phone?
Yeah.
Didn't work, did it? It's like, these things come, these things go. And so, again, Blue Sky is the next big thing. Everyone talks about it. Yay, yay, yay. But again, I think it's capping like around 25 million, maybe 50 million. But again, it's all the same audience. You can't do that. Like, that audience already exists. It's called Instagram. Instagram, it is non-volatile. It is butt shots. It is photos. It is all that stuff. It is not meaningful dialogue. It is exactly what it is: safe, clean. It is the opposite of 4chan. You know what I mean? And if you want volatile, you go to TikTok. TikTok, you have people killing themselves on TikTok. There's no regulation on TikTok. But again, I want to stress this final thought. But despite all what you've heard, and we've talked about this for 3 years now, despite all the people saying it's dead, X is still around. It's still the platform of choice for governments. It's still the platform of choice for conversation. So its death has been exaggerated year after year, but they're still using it. You know, every congressperson still uses it. Every world leader still uses it. They are not posting stuff on Instagram, and they're certainly not posting on Threads, and they're not posting it on Blue Sky. They're posting it on Twitter, because that's where the engagement is. If you don't have engagement, you don't have a platform. And that's the problem that Blue Sky and Threads don't seem to understand. Like, you need that agitation. If you don't have it, then what are you preaching to? Yourself. So
hopefully a little bit less preaching when it comes to...
It's sad though, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Social media used to be just to connect people. And I think Facebook even announced a push for their main service to be like, hey, get back to basics. Just talk to your friends and family on Facebook, without all the influencers and without all the ads and without all the products and pages and so on. It's like, even Facebook, like the core business of Facebook is like, it's gotten a little crazy out there. Can we get back to what it's about? So, hey, okay. All that aside, let's go to something a little bit more lighthearted, and let's talk about Switch 2.
Yay!
For everyone out there who thought, what was that?
Did you get one?
I
Did
did
you
not
pre-order?
pre-order one. No.
Oh.
No. I'm not really a big fan of the handheld consoles anymore. I love my computer too much. But I will say that eventually, when I see it on a shelf, I'll probably break down and at least get it for either myself for road trips or for my wife or something like that. I will probably get one. But what I want to say is, obviously, Nintendo, through Switch 1 and everything that happened with the first Switch and the shortages and the sold out stores and the availability of inventory, I'm sure they have absolutely learned from past demand and increased supply, increased inventory before they would do something like this, except it's sold out everywhere. And I'm talking about pre-orders
Yeah.
at least.
Let's just say this. You and I didn't have a chance to talk last time. And if we
Mhm.
did, you and I would be talking about the debut of the Switch 2 and the controversy over the price, the
Yeah,
games. We would have
450 is pretty crazy.
well, we would be having a very different conversation. So the real question was when they delayed Switch pre-orders. They claimed it was the tariffs. I never believed that for a second. I think a lot of people said that they did it because they were adjusting their price because the price was controversial. It got a lot of backlash. The original Switch launched in 2017 at $300. As of as of 2025, which is what, 8 years later, the original Switch is still $300. It has never gone down in price. In fact,
Yeah.
they have a new model of the Switch OLED, which I have, $350. So it is it's unheard of. That has never happened before in the history of any electronic device ever. That the system was so damn popular, it never dropped in price, not once, never, never, never. Only for sales. So everyone was thinking the Switch 2, and I told you I had two. I thought it was going to be $399. Most people had it at $399. Um, it wasn't. It was $449 for the console and $500 for the one with the Mario Kart World
Yeah, for the bundle.
pack-in.
Yeah.
Here's but that wasn't the real controversy. I think most people could stomach a slightly higher console because once it's just a one-time payment, right? Like and it's still lower than a PlayStation and Xbox.
Right.
And so it's the game prices that got really people's panties bunched a little bit, where they went from $59 to $79. Or Nintendo had already been playing with price increases with the Zelda game. It was the first Nintendo game to be $69 in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know this, Ben, but if you played Nintendo games back in the 90s, Nintendo 64 or Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, games would be $99. They could go up really high. They would be like Mario Kart came out and yeah.
Yeah, the industry standard of $59.99 eventually settled in and was that way for 10, 15 years.
That was a price increase. When the PlayStation came out, games were $49.
Right.
Like one of the things Sony did is across the board, they made everything $49, and eventually they settled on a second tier of $19.99. Like Sony changed the industry for the better because of CD-ROM. CD-ROMs were cheaper. Nintendo games were more expensive. That's why the GameCube had a fake CD, their own proprietary format.
Right.
And so, but long story short, yeah, about 10 years ago, they started raising the prices to $59, and that was still okay. That was okay.
I think with, and this is just my personal opinion, but like with inflation and honestly with video games still being the price to entertainment ratio, the value that you get out of video games.
It's not the worst price in the world.
No, even going up to like $79, like that's still probably for the money that you're spending for the hours of entertainment that you're getting. I'm not saying it's for every game, but for a lot of the games, it's still one of the most cost efficient forms of entertainment.
I think it is. I think it is the most. Like if you think about it, if you were going to take your family, and I know this, I haven't seen Minecraft, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews, so I bought a lot of tickets for that damn movie. I bought over 12 tickets for that movie. It's expensive. It's expensive.
Yep.
It's like easily $100, like a time. It's like $15 a ticket, right? And so you could buy Minecraft the game for $10. It's crazy, and they do play it. The kids love it, but anyway, the console comes out. It's controversial. It monopolized the news, and you and I both know that what passes for controversy is not necessarily reflective of real people. It's just reflective of people who want to instigate and get traffic.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, the dog's cool. He's totally he agrees with me, or she agrees with me.
He agrees with anyone who will give him a cookie. But no,
cookie.
Yeah, this whole thing with the Switch 2. So and also they're also talking about the carrying cases, the Joy Cons, the wheels,
Mhm.
like all the accessories are pretty expensive as well.
Yeah,
When it comes
but
to
it's like we've been through this before with the Wii, the original Wii. But I'll say this though. So let's just go back to pre-orders yesterday, right? Thursday. They opened up at midnight. Um, no problem because it's sold out in minutes. Here's the thing about it, which I don't really read in a lot of the pre-sales. So I look at the stock. I look at all the supply chain stuff. You know me. I deep dive. So do you know what the fastest selling console of all time was? Of all time, it was the PlayStation 2.
yeah, PS.
Yeah, in Japan, it sold 1 million units in the first month, which is a record that is still not beaten. When the Switch came out, now the Switch is the best-selling console of all time. It sold what, 120 million? It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Um, Nintendo had almost 3 million pre-orders in Japan. They couldn't handle it. They sold when your Switch came out in 2017, Ben. They only sold 330,000, and now they have 3 million pre-orders. It's insane. Analysts are saying the Switch 2 may actually sell 12 million units in the first month. That's insane for a
That
game console.
they literally
That's
won't because they can't make 12 million.
that's the
for the
thing
first
that
one.
that's exactly it. They can't make it. This is not an iPhone. Like we talked about this before. One of the geniuses of Steve Jobs is that he put Tim Cook, supply chain maestro, solved that problem. Like there were no lines after Tim Cook. Those lines are gone,
Yeah.
right? But the pent up verve for the Switch 2 is way beyond what people thought. Doesn't mean the system's going to sell 120 million. Doesn't mean that at all. But the idea that the price increase was somehow going to be a major deterrent doesn't seem to be in place. And I think that's the thing is that we live in a weird economy of uncertain time. Again, they say tariffs, whatever. But at the end of the day, though, I think what it is, and I'll tell you what it is that there was an item that came out after the Switch 2 was announced that Nintendo was seriously considering calling it the Super Switch. And I've said this on this show years ago that I think they should call it the Super Switch because it's the sequel to the Switch. But they didn't. They played it safe. No, they played it
The
safe,
Super Nintendo Switch. Yeah, that's.
which they did call it in a commercial with Paul Rudd. Did you see that commercial?
I did not know.
So back in 1991, when the Super Nintendo came out, I was sitting there, seventh grade. We had to watch Channel 1 on TV. And this commercial comes out for the Super Nintendo. And this cool guy comes out with cool hair. And it's all, aggro. And he comes out and he slams his cartridge in the Super Nintendo. And he starts playing. Oh, wow, this guy's awesome. This guy's cool. And he's playing Super Nintendo. Yeah, I want this. Oh, dear God, yes. Last week, Nintendo remade that commercial with the same actor. That actor was Paul Rudd in 1991. They got him back. And now that cool hair looks stupid and the clothes look stupid and he looks stupid and he knows he looks stupid. You could look it up on YouTube. And he's older, of course, and it's the same commercial. He takes the Switch 2 and he slams it in the dock and he starts playing and it's like supercharge your Nintendo. Just call it the Super Switch. Just call it the Super Switch. You know you want to call it. But the problem is they're following Sony. Sony has never been creative with their names. PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, whatever. So Nintendo, for the very first time, is doing a 2. They're playing it safe
Yeah.
because they cannot afford to mess this up. And I'll be honest with you, I think the name is boring. I think it's dull. I think it's predictable. I would love for them to call it the Super Switch, and maybe we can just rally and just still call it that anyway. But they're playing it safe.
I'm sure Nintendo will definitely heed the calls of the masses to release their games on other platforms. No. They
No.
Nintendo's going to do what Nintendo's going to do.
But the third controversy was about the game carts. And this is something I wish we had more time to talk about because the game carts are pretty cool and everybody hates them, but I love them. Are you familiar with game carts?
Game carts.
Game carts, not cartridges, carts. So if you buy a lot of Xbox X or PlayStation 5 games, the boxes are empty.
Yeah.
So for a long time now, you bought the Blu-ray disc and you put the Blu-ray in, it would say, oh, we need to update this. And basically the disc is like a trigger. It just triggers a download, right? And you got to re-download the game anyway.
Right.
But a lot of games don't come with anything. They come with a code and you got to put the code in. And so basically you're just buying an empty box. And you're buying an empty box with a code in it, and then that's it. And then you're done. You can't do anything else. The physical box you bought is worthless. It has no value. What Nintendo did something really cool, actually. They merged that technology with a piece of plastic. So you buy the game, you buy the physical thing, and instead of a cartridge, it comes with a cart. It looks like a Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge. It
Mm-hmm.
functions like one. You put it in your Switch, and it triggers the eShop, and it downloads the game to your Switch, right? And when you're done with the game, you take the game out and you can sell it, and that person can do the same thing. So they've managed to DRM onto a piece of plastic digital downloads that you can resell. I think that's cool. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you why it's cool. And I'll tell you why it's cool. And people complain they don't understand how retail works. But in retail, if Nintendo licenses you a game, you got to buy that SD card. Those are expensive. Now, maybe it's only like $2 or $3, but if you sell 1 million copies, you just spent $20 million on plastic, right?
Right.
That comes out of your profit. That's why physical media is more expensive. But these plastic cards are like 10 cents because there's no data on them. It's just a trigger. So what Nintendo has done for these third party is they've saved them potentially billions of dollars on buying unnecessary ROM cartridges. And also, if you're an indie seller, you can now put your game on a physical retail that you couldn't do before. Like you had to go through a third party, like Strictly Limited Games or whatever, and license your game to a third party to take your digital indie game and make it available physically. That's cost prohibitive. You can't do it. You just can't do it. If you're on the margins, like literally, if you make $30 million, you're going to spend $20 million on ROMs.
Right.
There's no profit. So what Nintendo did is they've fixed they didn't fix it, but they've introduced like a Band-Aid in between the two.
Right.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool, but I mean, obviously they're also going to find some profit margins elsewhere with that $450 price tag. Yeah, I don't know. We'll
Well,
and we're gonna wrap up talk about
yeah.
Nintendo Switch 2. In your professional opinion, when do you think the pre-orders will be back open? Because I know that like you're saying, there's overwhelming demand right now. You really can't pre-order it, so.
I don't think there's going to be any more pre-orders. I think, in fact, quite the opposite. Nintendo's already putting out words that even people who pre-ordered may not get their console. They underestimated the demand. Like, I think that's the problem. And I think when the Switch came out and the PlayStation came out years ago, that was through a chip shortage. Like the industry was going through a massive chip shortage that really declined. The only reason the Switch was available as it was is because it was a recycled NVIDIA chip. Like a lot of people don't realize this. It was actually like NVIDIA had made a set-top box called the Shield, and it didn't sell. So Nintendo basically took all the old Shields, they rejiggered them and turned them into the Switch.
I remember the Shield.
And, yeah. So they recycled them. By the way, a lot of people don't know this. That's what Valve did with the Steam Deck. That's why you're not seeing like a new Steam Deck because, again, Valve bought up all the old chips from an old unit that didn't work and they recycled them. It's very hard to make. It's very hard to get a proprietary thing.
Yeah.
So I think if you get a Switch 2 on June 5th when it launches, count your blessings, and you're lucky to get one. If you're unwilling to brave like the scalpers, and God help me that I hope they all fail. But if you have to get one through the scalpers, it might be the way. But I'd say probably by the end of the year, you should probably be able to get one. I think the supply will be much better than the original Switch because there is no chip shortage. But again, this could be a case where Nintendo just can't scale up in time.
Yeah.
Remember, this used to be a problem, man. This used to be a big problem for console companies, for phone companies. Like, again, Apple solved the problem with their stuff, but like other companies, they just can't produce this many units for the demand. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it does tentatively look like they're going to be successful with it at launch, but long term is anybody's guess. So,
well, we will have to wait for when we can actually get our hands on one. And I do like, some of the specs, and we didn't really talk about the hardware, but the hardware looks like a good upgrade over the original Switch. So, a lot to love.
Yeah, nice, appropriate iteration with, I'll just say this, don't know 100%, but basically if anyone's curious, it does look like it's a combination of yesterday's technology with tomorrow's technology. Like it's older tech with newer features like DLSS and ray tracing and everything. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's all in the games. The games is the only thing that matter.
Absolutely, and I don't think anyone has ever claimed that Nintendo just doesn't do games right. So, with that being said, Nathan, we're going to wrap up there, and before we go, let's talk about Popzara real quick, and what you've been up to, what your writers have been up to, anything that you want to call out as memorable. I know that you were just working on something right before the show, but what's going on over there?
Oh, it never stops, does it? No, a bunch of, as we're going into summer, expect a lot of movie coverage coming in June. Probably expect some Switch 2 coverage when that comes out. Some more podcast episodes, some more reviews. Nothing, I mean, like I said, it's nothing you haven't seen anywhere else, but it's a different view of it. So it's very consistent. We are not rocking that boat.
You say that, but at the same time, there are definitely reviews of things that I have not seen anywhere else. And, the mix is, hey, we've all seen carrots, onions, and celery, but when you put them all together just right, hey, it's a thing of beauty. Whoa. So everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning into the Computer America program. Thank you for listening, and Nathan, I want to thank you for your time. I know that it's been a little while. It won't be this long again next time, but
you're fine.
I want to, of course, thank you for coming on and chatting with us. Everyone out there, if you want to find out more, computeramerica.com. You'll find the show notes right there, everything that we talked about. And until next time, have a great day, have a great weekend, do something fun. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.